Well, it's Saturday night, and I'm going to be a little informal with you guys tonight because it's D Day -1. And what does that mean? That tomorrow is going to be D Day, and in many respects, Judgment Day for some of these politicians. Now, I have a feeling that at the NNP convention, a certain gentleman is going to get a Kamala style ass whooping. And boy, oh boy, it would be a good thing for the NNP Party and a good thing for politics in Grenada and for democracy. But you have this gentleman talking about so much about democracy. A matter of fact, in some respects, he's claiming that he's not satisfied or he does not believe that the Westminster model of democracy is appropriate for Grenada. That we need to do more. Is he suggesting that we need to go back? Because that's what they used to say during the PRG. Y'all may not know. Some of y'all may not know. But those who know. They used to say, we're the most democratic because we go in all these little local meetings and we ask the people what they want as if they actually implement what the people want. It was a charade. It was a charade where they pretend to go in the evenings and consult with the people and make you feel that, they were so democratic. Democratic. This is the same. You know what's that type of democracy? The democratic centralism that they had in the CC that led to them fabricating a crisis in the party of joint leadership. And I notice these people are good at manufacturing crises. Now, I happen to take a look because I'm getting a little more enthralled. But I'm very happy that I took a look at Jenny Simon's. She was talking about the explosive nature of what's going on in NNP. And in many respects, she is spot on. And I could understand why, because she explained why. She was part of the NDC and she knew what was happening. And what was critical in what she said is that exactly what is happening now in the NNP with that faction is exactly or even worse that was done in the NDC. So one thing is clear, that everywhere from the PRG to the NDC to the NNP, everywhere that these gentlemen go, there's a part of destruction, anarchy, confusion that follows them. Every single way they go. And I'm telling you, I'm going to put a link in the comment section of this video. I'm going to pin Jenny Simon's video because I think it's worth every minute of looking at. The lady has her facts. The lady has her facts. And my goodness, I'm glad she's taking the time to educate those who don't know. Because, I based a lot of what I have said in a lot of things that are currently happening. And I told you that Cam Jones came with the stats, and I was happy about that. And then now, Jenny Simon is a gem. You guys need to listen to what this woman is saying, because she was part and parcel of the NDC when these guys also tried to hijack the NDC. So this is crazy. This is a pattern of behavior. From PRG to the NDC to the NNP. There is some sort of parasitic nature to the political actions of these people. where they go into a party, and it's interesting enough. Jenny said the same that I said a couple of weeks ago, that they're never interested in forming their own party, but they like to get into the architecture of established parties and parasitically work from the inside to try to garner power and overtake these institutions. Now, when that woman said what they tried to do to Uncle Tilly in the NDC, I was floored. I could not believe. I'm like, wait. Well, I'm surprised with all that transpired in the NDC that the NNP was not on guard. But she did say initially the executive of the NNP did not want anything to do with these people. But I guess in politics, you have strange bedfellows, as they say, and probably for political expediency, they might have initially welcomed them, not realizing, not looking at the history of the actions of these people. And then, again, we're at this point, and you have a manufactured crisis. All of a sudden, established rules, established regulations, established ways of doing things are not good enough because they believe that it is impacting them negatively, and it's lowering their chances of getting the leadership of the party. So all of a sudden, same thing they did with Mars, same exact thing that was done with Mars. Not them specifically, but it's the same sets of people with the same set of ideology, where they always bring up a crisis, they manufacture a crisis, create chaos, and then pretend to be the victim. Remember, the vice prime minister, when the crisis was manufactured in the CC, decided, I'm going to exit, strategically withdraw, and say, I want nothing to do with it. I'm out of it. So he could garner sympathy and at the same time enrage his supporters. Now, these people are pretty cunning. I'm telling you, these people are pretty cunning. But what is amazing, they're always so cunning and so bright for Grenadian people. When they get the opportunity to prove they're cunning regionally or internationally, they're a bunch of peepsqueaks. They're outsmarted and manipulated all the time by these cunning foxes at a regional and international level. But when it comes to Grenada and Grenadians, they're bright. They're the most cunning. But it seems like my girl Jenny is on to them. And she's on a mission to educate the rest of Grenada and people in the diaspora. So I'm not going to get into it anymore, but I'm going to let you listen. You have to listen to what she has to say so you understand the background and you see the consistent behavior and an attempt to hijack everything that they get into. They want to take it over. It seems like the leopard has not changed their skins.
The will of the people. Let's make sure that the will of the people is manifested in the convention rather than the will of a few. So, but I am confident that as we move forward, you see, this conversation is going to be a conversation before and after the convention. This conversation about democracy, not only within NNP, but within the NDC, within the country, is something that we need to have so that the will of our people are always manifested. And there are different forms that democracy can take. Let us look at the best form. I have argued, for example, that Westminster-style government, I don't call it Westminster democracy, Westminster-style government has divided up our country, has tribalized our country.
And there he goes. He tries to denigrate, Westminster government. but a guy who was way more bright than him. The great George Brazan did an in-depth look at this and has said that of all the government stars, that Westminster model is the most appropriate for Grenada and countries in the Caribbean like Grenada. So what the gentleman is saying there, we've heard this before. This is all leftist, commie talking points. We heard that. There was a lot of that nonsense floating around during the PRG and anti-Westminster government. I mean, there's a lot of that. We heard that before. What is appalling, and as I've said before, that after so much evidence to the contrary, that this leftist ideology and them and don't work. Again, yet still, these fellas hold up these ideologies as some model to be looked up. They're still sensational about these leftist ideologies. It just means that they have not grown politically. Read George Brazan, and you will see how much what he has said is quite appropriate for Grenada. Read George Brazan. Read Island of Conflict. Read Brave Grenadians. Just read his books. These are the sort of books that probably should be made. I don't know, probably it is. Required reading by the Grenadian youth.
So that we say NNP people NDC cussing, NDC people from NNP cussing, and that has filtered down into families, into communities. We've tribalized.
Well, Peter, I've known instances in households, right, where election day, they're going out to vote. A husband goes by himself because he's voting one party, and the wife and the children have to find a way to vote because they're voting the opposite party.
Exactly. I know a family where people run election them one sit and talking to the other. And you know, and that it's amazing. So, you know, I know there are people outside there who don't support me, and that's fine. There are people outside there who don't believe that I'm the best person. That is fine.
Are you sure that is fine, Private Pile? Are you sure?
But let's be civil about it. But more importantly, let's set up the mechanism within parties, within institutions, within government, that the results, we can say, truly reflects the will of the people who are electing. So yes, I believe the delegates list should be made public. I see no problem with that. In fact, I suspect there are certain people who have it. But, you know,
So there we go about mechanisms again. All of a sudden, there's a problem with mechanisms. You've been in the party, what, in excess of 10 years already? And you're just realizing the problems with mechanisms? You couldn't whisper into the ear of people in the party and say, look, there's a problem with mechanisms? Or let's work on making the changes. But no, when you feel that it impacts you directly, all of a sudden you're interested in making changes? And all of a sudden you're interested in mechanisms?
Problem for me in this campaign, quite frankly, in a sense, is that the whole apparatus has been turned against me. From the day I announced my candidacy, it's like everything I have turned now to becoming a monster. I mean, when I entered the NNP, I entered in a state that made me feel happy. The NNP members on the ground, the people in the communities, the people in...
So, Dr. Mitchell being concerned about legacy and preserving the essential values of the party means that the apparatus has turned against you? Rightfully so, because he has earned that right to ensure there's a smooth transition and to ensure that the doctrinal integrity of the party is maintained. To say that he would like to see someone from the belly of, and the bowels of the party, is that a bad thing to say? He has earned that right to say that. He has earned that right to favor who he wants to favor. To see the doctrinal integrity of the party is maintained. And we've talked about that several times. You're not center right. Period. We know that.
Delegates, because I have no idea who the delegates are. But because up until now, I've asked for the delegates list, and that has not been made available. And you know, I listened to Dr. Braffett on a program.
The Bob Report?
Yes, I think it was this morning. I was listening to it. And
last night.
He was making some very critical points that, you know, over the last 2 years, we should be seeking to enhance the democratic process within the NNP. The fact is, the NNP has not had a contentious leadership race for more than 30 years.
So are we implying that the process was rigged? Are we implying that all of a sudden now, when do you want them to make those transitions? Or when do you want them to change the structure, the democratic structure of the party? Do you think this is something that happens overnight? Who initiates that? If something have been working for these people for donkey years, as we see, and all of a sudden, you, in some ways as an outsider, believe that it should change, then all of a sudden you think that they're going to ups and change it? Is it probably democratic if many people share the same sentiment that you share? Then there might be an impetus to make changes? So why do you feel that it's undemocratic? Because you and Dr. Braffett says that it's undemocratic. Do we really understand the concept of democracy and the rule of the majority? Okay.
Now listen, as Dr. Braffett said and as Mr. Holness said, our political parties are public entities. It's a public institution. There's nothing secret and sinister about it. There's nothing secret and sinister about me saying I'm putting up my name. If I win, if I lose, it's a matter for the people.
It's all part of the process.
It's part of the process. But
well, I noticed throughout many interviews, the gentleman keeps harping on what Dr. Holness of Jamaica said concerning transparency. But did you understand what he said about transparency in the context in which he said it? Dr. Holness gave a speech for 20 minutes. And I noticed every interview and every chance this gentleman gets, he talks about the transparency that Dr. Holness happened to mention. Out of that 20 minutes of speech, Dr. Holness spent less than 1 minute on this whole transparency talk. And he was saying it in the context of knowing who you are as a party, what you represent as a party, what are your ideals as a party. How come the gentleman is not talking about the emphasis that Dr. Holness made on the ideals and values of the NNP party, and how much he reminded the NNP and the party that it is a center-right party. And he stressed, out of that 20 minutes, probably 15 minutes was spent on exploring and explaining the center-right doctrine of the party, and the values of the party, and the conservative nature of the party, and the ideals of the party, and how much the party is actually part of the CDU, the Caribbean Democratic Union, and how much the party is part of the International Democratic Union, which is conservative-leaning parties. This was mainly the emphasis and the relationship of NNP to the rest of Caribbean parties. I suggest the gentleman listen. Well, he was there, right? He was supposedly there, right? So, but you need to listen again, the 20-minute speech, and don't harp on less than 1 minute of the 20-minute speech for political effect. A matter of fact, Dr. Holness was so serious about maintaining the integrity of the party, doctrinal integrity, that he thought that Alan Chastanet did not go far enough. Because Alan tend to say that the parties in the Caribbean are more centrist. And Dr. Owen's comments said, no, reminded him that he didn't go far enough. That the parties are center-right. That NNP is a center-right party. That JLP is a center-right party. And their sister parties are center-right parties. So again, I don't want to have to go over that again. How does a center-left or left-leaning guy fits in for the leadership of a center-right party? Again, it's a wrong peg in a square hole. It is not a good fit. It will never be a good fit. Old stories that my grandmother used to tell me. And she used to phrase it like this. If you lay with serpents, you'll get bitten by them. And she also said that if two serpents lay with each other, one of them is going to try to strangle the other. Maybe there might be some context in what my grandmother said as it relates to all this political intrigue.
in terms of raising the necessary monies to win the election. I remember that is legitimate in election processes. Every party has to seek financing, and the party with the thoroughbred party, if you want to call it that, is a party that people place the bets on.
Well, there it is. The gentleman is saying he's a master financier, and he's the one who's going to attract money to the party. No one else can do it. Or no other party can do it. Well, strangely enough, I could, I'm old enough to remember 2 years ago, a party that was utterly in financial ruins. There were people, young people who came into the party and financed the party and propelled the party, among other things, to a devastating win. So, I guess my man's is not the only financier.